Alright, so in TouchDesigner we're working with quite a few different types of data. So it's really important to understand that what you're working with in TouchDesigner is all just data, whether it be image data or like pixel data, texture data, audio data, so like channel data or anything like that. So it's all really data in the end. It's all, when it really comes down to it, it's all just zeros and ones, and really go to the core. So it's really important to understand that, and TouchDesigner makes great use of that. So we have different so-called operator families that deal with different type of of that data. So we can add a new operator and to have a look at the different families and their operators that there are. Then we have a few different options. So we can access this menu, in 4 ways. One is by clicking this plus button, and the other one is by right-clicking anywhere and then saying Add Operator. But I would recommend either using the tab, so the 2 arrows on your keyboard, or just double-clicking with your left mouse anywhere but on Operators. Alright, so when you open this dialog, so-called OP, so Operator Create Dialog, you can see this this huge list of operators and the different families that are in different colors. You also have a little search bar up here that we're going to talk about. So you have 6 main families, and 5 of them are kind of basic operations, and then there's the components that are a bit special. You also have the option to add your own custom components, or to use custom components that other people have made, but we're not going to get into that. Alright, so I'm going to just explain what all of these families do. We have the tops, and these names are a bit weird in the beginning, like top, chop, sop, but it's fine, you're going to get used to it. These are just abbreviations, so top stands for texture operators, and these are the violet ones. So texture operators deal with all kinds of 2D imagery, anything that's got to do with like pixels. So you can input video and image files. You can process that and change those files. You can create 2D shapes like circles, rectangles, and those kind of shapes, and you can output 2D imagery as well, so like kind of export videos or images. You can also work with text and tops, and you can also render 3D geometry with tops. So not only with tops, this works in connection with other families, but with tops you can make a 3D geometry kind of be a 2D image. We're going to get to that later. So what's really important is that tops are working with 2D images, and that tops are working on your graphics card. So these are completely computed on your GPU. So they're relatively fast. You also have the chop family. So chop stands for channel operators, and channel operators deal with all kinds of data and signals. So I mean, as I just said in the beginning, they're all dealing with data in a way, but these are like dealing with like signals. So you have things like if you're looking for anything that's got to do with audio, it's in chops. So chops are using audio channels, or like dealing with audio channels. You have things like creating a random number with noise, for example. So this is like a channel, and using an algorithm to create that. You have things like an LFO that just goes that's just based on a sine wave, and you can input things like MIDI controllers. You can input a Kinect, a leap motion, and other anything like other devices that use channel data that kind of output you like positions and numbers and stuff like that. So that all of that is mostly going into chops, and also that's, we'll talk about that in a second. All right, so these are like the green. This is the green family. Then we have SOPs, the blue one. SOPs stands for surface operators, and surface operators are anything that's got to do with 3D geometry. So these are for creating things like a sphere and 3D, which we can actually interact with, or like a box that we can also interact with, and anything that's got to do with 3D geometry, primitives and all that kind of stuff is working in SOPs. So I don't think I need to say much more here. We also have mats, which stands for materials. So if we have like a box and we want to put like an image on that box, or like just a color, or if we want to shape a sphere or something, then we can use mats to do so. We can use materials to put an image, a color, or a shader onto any kind of 3D geometry. The next one is DATs. DATs is this red family, and DATs are dealing with all kinds of plain text. So you have like they're kind of called the data family, but they also they're also dealing with data like chops are, but in a different way. So you can also input things like a CSV file, and that's going to be in the DAT family, and you can write text in DATs. You have things like scripts and DATs, so like Python scripts, GLSL scripts. So for example, if you're working with GLSL and drop a GLSL top in here, you get two DATs, one like the coming with it, and one is where you actually type the shader, and one is where it outputs errors and stuff like that, info about the shader. So anything that's got to do with text is going on in the DATs. Last but not least, we have the comms, and they're a bit different than the others, because what makes them different mostly is that they can hold other families or also other components. So comm stands for components. And also there are inside components, there are different types of components. So we have components that deal with 3D objects. So if we want to convert, as what I was talking about, if we want to like kind of convert 3D geometry to 2D 2D imagery. So if we want to render something, then we're gonna need components like a camera, like a light, and a geometry. We also have things like environment lights, ambient lights. We can import things like FBX, USD, and some other things there. Then we also have the so-called panels. So these are mainly for building interfaces and outputting projects, and we also have things like the buttons, sliders, widgets, which is going to be used for building UIs. Then we have other so-called other components, which is like a base that you can just zoom in and hold other components in here. So it's kind of like a folder. We have things like the animation comp. If you drop that down, you have you can edit keyframe animation in there, and then use that data to do animation. We have a replicator, which I'm going to talk about later, and we have the dynamics section, which is for fluid simulation, physics simulation, and that sort of stuff. All right, so what's important about operator families is that you can't connect one, like as you can see here, these are two different families. You can convert from one to the other, but you can't connect from like one with the other. So I can't just take this operator, which is a top, and connect it to here. It's just going to close its entrance there. So this is a chop, this is a top, and I can't just connect those because it's a different data format. So what I can do is convert them from one to the other. So this doesn't work on every family, but for example, if you have a chop, you can easily convert it to a top, as you can see here. So we just have a noise chop, which is creating these pseudo-random numbers between 0 and 1, and we're just converting those into a grayscale format. So here we have them like represented. What we have here as just a number, here we have it represented as actual like pixel data, or grayscale data. All right, so in the next one we're going to look at operators more closely. That's it for the operator families now.